All right. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, shout out to the Startup Business Festival for the invite and the business clinic for organizing this. As Lucky has introduced me, my name is Tiisetso Maloma. My background. So um, I've been this naive person. I've done almost all the things that I wanted to do. I studied accounting. At some point, I was a DJ. I had a sound business. I used to rent out sound while DJing. I got into clothing. We made two clothing labels. What is it? I'm a publisher as well. We've got a publishing business. So I've done a bunch of things, and I still continue to do a bunch of things. I've worn many hats. I've been self-taught, and in most cases, well, in all cases, I guess. Photographer, graphic designer, editor for books. Like I've just been this naive person who's done all the things that I wanted to do. If I could not afford someone to assist with me, in case maybe an editor would just write and hustle it through. So the culmination of that is that, which is something that I now realize, which I guess will be the essence of the talk, that everything is connected. Actually, you realize as I give the talk. So well, I write books as well. So I've got 7 books. The latest 2 books, which I guess are interest of to this meetup, which is Understanding the Fourth Industrial Revolution and Innovation Easily. And the other one is Innovate the Next. I guess you'll see it here. So, okay, just to maybe mention the other books. The first book came out in 2013 was Forget the Business Plan, Use This Short Model. The second one was Township Biz Fastrack. The third was Tales of an African Entrepreneur, which basically was a compilation of my best essays that I've written and that people have loved and said they've gotten value out of. The fourth book was The Anxious Entrepreneur. The fifth one was Township Biz Adjacent. So, like I said, this talk is mostly based on my investigation into innovation, which, as you will realize as I go on, is a culmination maybe of all the things that I do. As I said, all are connected. Title of the talk is how to understand innovation or how to innovate. Maybe the subtitle would say is it is the cheapest time in history to be an entrepreneur and to be an innovator. All right. So I was here at the business clinic a while ago. I just want to set up something here. A while ago, and I spoke of innovation, and I'm sure some of you were there. So some of the things here I'll mention will be a bit, not necessarily a bit of a repetition. It's things that you've heard, but with a bit of twist. So, all right, I want to set up something here quickly. Okay. Wait, just a minute. All right. Okay. So I'm always writing. I always wanna write. So now I'm attempting to write a book, which still encompasses or takes from the concepts in the 2 books that I've mentioned, rather the investigation into innovation, which I figured that innovation is really just what the fourth industrial revolution is. We could say there was the third, there was the second, there was the first, and there was many other, you could say, revolutions before that. So it will be the fifth. So it's innovation is what human beings do. So even if we call it fourth industrial revolution, it's just what human beings do and continue to do. You can just say, when you say fourth industrial revolution, it's it's a definition of an era, but in essence, it's just innovation. And so this is what I realized in writing the books. So the twist today is that I'm going to. So the book I'm trying to write, it's money, the evolutionary background of money. It's not a book on how to make money, but it's to understand what money is. So money also it's an innovation. So let me start it this way. So when you trace anthropology of human beings, um, in terms of innovation, it traces back to about 3 million years ago. There were some stone tools that were discovered. So stone tools, you could say also they were an invention, they were an innovative invention. So they were apparently made by our ancestor, the Australopithecus, yeah, 3 million years ago. So, okay, another thing that the story of evolution, that we evolved into human beings. The universe is about, or rather, Earth is about 4.2 billion years old, and then life started in a simple form from single cellular organisms. It branched out to the six kingdoms of biology, which is bacteria, archaea, fungi, protists, plants, and animals. Human beings fall within animals, and so invention in our sense is that manipulating anything that we find on Earth to make something that's of use to us. So those stone tools found 3 million years ago, or traced rather to about 3 million years ago, it means um, it's a evidence that of the earliest innovation that we human beings were able to do. So we were manipulating, you can say, stones to make something that's of use to us. It could be maybe I don't know, yeah, a stone tool for maybe to make a knife, you know, and or to make spears. So even any animals innovate. So you can think of birds, they build nests. That's the innovation. They are manipulating what's out there to make something of use to them. So it's they're creating a nest for them to stay, and then for them to when they, I don't know, is it giving birth? I don't know if birds give birth, but the eggs, to shelter the eggs, to nest the eggs. Let me say that. And we know also that chimpanzees also innovate. There's traces of them sharpening stone tools to go hunt mammals. So that's also innovation. They are manipulating what's out there to make something that's of use to them, that's of utility to them, which is hunting. They need to eat, right? So that's maybe the parallel evidence, because we share the same ancestors as the chimpanzees. I mean, you can trace it to I mean, we come from the same source, which is traced to that we came from single cell organisms, bacteria and archaea coming together, merging, and down the years, maybe millions of years, multicellular organisms forming. All right. So when you trace the anthropology of you could say our ancestors, as I said, Australopithecus. I don't know if I'm getting the name right. This biology term sometimes they also, it's hard for me to remember them. Okay. So you can imagine that until maybe the agricultural revolution, which is before the industrial revolution. So there's so many discoveries that were made of human beings manipulating tools, stones, the discovery of fire, and then with rather the discovery of controlling fire, meaning there was a point where we couldn't make fire at will, but there was a point where we discovered how to make fire at will. You'd rub flint stones, and then that's how fire is made. And then with fire we made a lot of other innovations, which is what you can say the innovation of cooking. We could cook meat, we could cook make so many other dishes. So making a dish also, it's innovation, because you're inventing something that wasn't there. Even today, we still continue to make dishes that weren't there before. So you can see the story of human innovation comes far, or rather, at least in our sense, the evidence that exists is that it started 3 million years ago. Rather, that's where the evidence is. There could be other innovations before then, but I mean, it's hard to really discover things that were left behind millions of years ago. So most of them were ruined. So that's what it's about. So from being able to, okay, so with animals, chimps, gave an example, and with birds, they can only sort of innovate or invent just one layer. Now with us human beings, we can take it to the next layer, meaning we can invent a chair, and then someone invents a wheel, and then we combine those two, it becomes a wheelchair. So we have taken it levels upon levels upon levels. We merge innovations, we co-opt innovations. So even about a million years ago, there's evidence that we were taking innovations layer by layer. We're inventing one thing here, and then with Flintstones, when you kind of like cut them and or rather beat them up, they could make like a sharp tool which will act like a knife. So imagine having a stone tool, use it as a knife, and then later on you discover another rock which is a flintstone, and then with that flintstone you can make fire. You can also make like a sharp object which acts like like uh, like a knife. So what I want you to realize is that, so innovation in a sense expands, right? So it means our human cognition, our human intelligence, it's able to expand things that we innovate. Like I gave an example of a chair, someone making a chair, later on someone making a wheel, and then combining those two, it becomes a wheelchair. So even before the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, we were making all these different innovations. There was a point where what do you call them, minerals were discovered, and then we could make steel, could make gold, all these different things going in different directions. So I'll point you to that. Money also is an innovation. So our early ancestors, which include like in biology, they classify our genus as the genus Homo. So there's Homo erectus, the Homo neanderthals. Human beings are the Homo sapiens, which is a weird word, I guess. I guess we are that arrogant. Sapiens means wise. So out of all the genus, we called ourselves the wisest of them all. So there's actually evidence, biological evidence, that we share the same DNA with the Neanderthals, with Homo erectus. So it means we could interbreed with our earlier ancestors, and well, I guess they went extinct. Maybe we killed them because we come from a history of violence, or maybe they went extinct for whatever cause. So now, so the evidence is that, rather the earliest evidence of human beings living in groups, let's say hunter-gatherer groups, it's with Homo erectus. Even animals, lions, birds, they move around in herds, and also move around in herds. So there must be a benefit that we get when we move around in herds. Imagine we are hunter-gatherers, we live in the wild, and it's dangerous. Checking out one direction, the other scouting the other direction, just to keep safe. So that our tribe is safe and we can move on and do what we need to do. So maybe that's the advantage of living in tribes. So that's the evidence that we're living in different hunter-gatherer groups. So imagine there are all these hunter-gatherer groups. Sometimes they fight, because we have that history of violence. But now all of them are innovating. So imagine one innovates a knife, imagine another innovates how to make fire. So that's where we start transacting. So we say, okay, I'll give you this knife if you give me this flintstones for me to start fire with. So imagine all the different hunter-gatherer groups are innovating all these different things. So it becomes essential rather for survival that if I don't know how to make a knife, you come teach me how to, or rather a member of a different tribe teaches me how to make a knife, or at least they sell me a knife. No, so there wasn't money as we know it then. So the easiest thing that human beings could do is that we would exchange. When I say human beings, I also include maybe our other the other members of the genus Homo, meaning Homo erectus, Homo rather Neanderthals. So yeah, because I guess we are all humans. We are all upright men. So you can see this correlation with anthropology, and again with commerce, again with you could say a bit of you could say, and when knife was invented, it's a bit of a technology, because it's a tool, it's a utility that gets you somewhere. So okay, now all these hunter-gatherer groups are making all these different innovations, and now they start trading, they start bartering, meaning goods, exchange of goods for goods. So that also is mine. When you've got a good that I'm exchanging with you for another good, our goods are currency to us. So we have to accept the value. Say for this knife, you'll give me so many flintstones. We'll arrange it. It's the matter of demand and supply. If I want it badly, then I guess I will, whatever value you offer me. I guess upon negotiation, I will take it. Right. So it's a matter of demand and supply. And we were transacting like that. We were transacting like that. So that's where you could say that the money comes from. So money is an innovation, right? It's the concept of money. A trade, it's an innovation, meaning we trying to get something of utility by doing this concept of trading. So barter trade also, you can say that's the start of where money started. So we exchanging all those things, and then down the line we realize that actually, so imagine the abundance of innovation that keeps happening or kept happening from there on. You can even go onto Wikipedia, just say Google human invention. You'll see a whole lot of innovations in from maybe 3 million years ago going down up until the agricultural revolution. It's a host of things. So imagine all this host of things, and now we have to barter trade. It becomes a bit tedious, a bit impossible. So we now realize that there are these shiny objects. You could say there are bits, there are shells that we come across, and then we realize, okay, these things they're shiny, and we've got a concept of liking aesthetics that are kind of maybe rare. Like, I'm just making all these elaborations so that you understand. I'm not necessarily saying I'm precise to the core, so I'm just trying to elaborate where it could have come from, right? So barter trade becomes serious because there's a whole host of innovations that that our ancestors were making and kept making, and now we decide, okay, let's start trading with shells. Why? Because shells maybe are scarce. So we know that to go get them, maybe you have to walk a long time. And again, like I'm saying, I'm just making all this elaboration. So the other factors of money is that the effect of money that we know today is that it has to be scarce. Because if you've just got like, for example, you trading with shells that are just in abundance, they've got no sort of value. I mean, I can just buy everything that you are selling. So I will accept a piece of let's call it's called commodity money. I'll accept a piece of commodity if I believe it's rare. And then why am I saying shells? Because they are easy to handle. Imagine having to travel hundreds of kilometers to go trade a cow. So if you had maybe shells, you could carry it and then go. It will be easy to go and trade with. If we believe this shell is scarce. If maybe, for example, it's in abundance in one area, and then people from that area go to another area to go buy other innovations in that area, the people in that area will soon realize, oh, okay, man, maybe these shells are not so precious because now they are buying everything that we have. So let's hold on to it. And because at the end of the day, they'll take everything that we own. So it's the concept of money, but demand and supply. If something is not scarce, then its value drops, right? So money also, it's an innovation. So it's a kind of innovation that connects all these different innovations. So now let's say maybe we discover a process of we start realizing now that we can start farming animals. We can stay in one place and then grow fruits, grow vegetables, and that's like necessarily that's what they call the agricultural revolution. So again, still it's a basis of human beings have been evolving and innovating different concepts, different tools to gain them utility, and then they realize that maybe let's get married, because marriage also sort of, it's a certain concept of where you can bring up your kids, you can take care of your tribe. So all these different concepts, which I'll explain why I say marriage is an innovation. And all, so even religion, money, it's innovation, religion is innovation, marriage is innovation, because these are concepts that get us some sort of utility. Let's take a bit of a break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. It's weird doing without an audience, like not seeing people. Do you need to come on up here to put that thing on?
No, it's fine.
Okay. No, not now though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did say you will cue them in.
I can just say to them.
Yeah,
Okay.
as they are getting streaming live. So
Okay.
what we sing downstairs.
Okay.
Okay.
For over a century, scientists warned that the Earth's climate was changing as a result of human action. South Africa's plans and initiatives to create a green economy have positioned the country to take the lead on the continent through the country's membership to the Partnership for Action on Green Economy, PAGE.
South Africa joined this program in 2015 as part of the outcomes of the Rio Plus 20.
PAGE is supported by the generous contributions of its donor partners, and it brings together 5 United Nations agencies.
South Africa is one of the first recipients of PAGE Green Recovery Funds.
This is reflected in the National Development Plan Vision 2030, which puts green economy
and low carbon economy in South Africa.
PAGE has certainly lived up to its intention of forging partnerships and network in South Africa.
To ensure that going forward, we have this green economic recovery and stimulus package that meets the needs of our developing society.
Be on. All right. Welcome back. So in that past segment, I was just giving a bit of background in terms of human innovation. So that's what human beings are able to do. And out of all these innovations that we create, we need a concept like money so that we can trade. So money, like I said, it's an innovation because it's a concept that allows us to trade. You make one thing, I make another thing, and then if I need your thing, then we can trade. It starts off with a barter trade, and then we invent another form of money which becomes commodity money. And then, like I said, the commodity money needs to be agile in that you can carry it around. Well, there was gold, there were shells you can carry around, beads you could carry around. And well, there were gold coins with all these different innovations that we were making as human beings. Now, it has to be scarce. Otherwise, if it's not scarce, it means I could just go all the commodity money that I have. Imagine if it's beads or seashells, I can just come to your area and buy up everything, So, and then with those shells that I give you in transaction, you can't come to me and buy because I know these things are worthless. So the concept of money is that it needs to be scarce. So money as well is an innovation. So let me explain what an innovation is in this framework. Again, let me go back 3.8 billion years ago approximately. There was single cellular organisms, bacteria and archaea. Along the years, they emerged and then they started creating what would be multicellular organisms. So human beings are multicellular organisms. So we are said to have about 30 trillion cells. Like on average, a human being has got about 30 trillion cells. So think of this. So innovation, it's a mixture of things. You mix in one thing and another. You're making something that's of utility, something that's novel. A wheelchair, it's made of what? It's made of a chair and the concept of a wheel. There was a point where the concept of a wheel wasn't there, and then someone created it, so it became a novel thing. There was a point where, like a chair, I guess human beings have always been sitting. So someone takes the concept of, okay, we sit, and then let me create this tool that allows me to sit comfortably than sitting on a rock. So in a sense, I'm creating a tool that's of utility, that's of agility, better than sitting on a stone, making it with wood maybe. And the concept here is that it's agile, so it achieves a bit of efficiency for me. Maybe I can carry it around. If I can't walk, then someone invents a wheelchair, and then I can wheel myself to places there where I want to go. So innovation is that it's mixing two or more things to create something of utility. Money, again, it's what? It's a concept. So the concept also mixes what? That a transaction needs to happen, exchange of goods for goods. So it's also a mixture. It's a concept that allows human beings to achieve a certain utility. So think of innovation as mixing one or two things to make something that's of utility. And innovation, like I said, chimpanzees can only innovate one layer up, which is making spears, sharpening sticks to make spears. Birds make nests. That's just one layer up. Human beings, we can take it to layers above. So that also, I guess, it's a gift of biology. So we've got this biological brain that can innovate things further and further. So we've also got the advantage of language. So other animals, of course, they do communicate in the form of gestures. There's evidence that the chimpanzees also communicate. They've got around about, I think it's above, at least the gestures that have been found is about over 70 gestures that chimps use to communicate, right? So human beings, we've got the advantage of language. So somewhere, somehow, even if it's hard to figure out what enables human beings to speak the way we do. Science presents a lot of evidence in that maybe we are made from different animals. So there's the whole lot of evidence. It's hard to really only to one thing. We have language. So also language is an innovation. It's possible because biologically maybe we are able to create language, as we see the difference that other animals don't have articulate language as we do have with grammar and the way we speak. So it's that. So we are gifted with this thing. So the brain, or rather our biological makeup, it's also a gift of biology. There was like I'm saying, there's a point where human beings didn't exist. Nature evolved to have human beings, right? For example, 2 billion years ago, there wasn't. So there's a concept that I also mentioned in the book called the adjacent possible. So the adjacent possible, it's any piece of innovation that can come to be out of what is in existence. So you can't make something new out of what doesn't exist, right? What is it? When there were single-cell organisms, human beings, maybe a further down the line innovation, because it's maybe 3 billion years ago, over 3 billion years ago. So when there were single-cell organisms in the world, in the biological sphere, human beings were an adjacent possible, but it was further down the line. Plants also were an adjacent possible. There were a point where bacteria doesn't have a brain, so also a brain evolved. So it evolved in different in animals over millions or even billions of years. Just I forgot sort of the exact pinpoint of the years of when the brain evolved. So all everything new, for evolution to happen, a novelty must be created. So novelty is something that didn't exist before. There was a point where human beings, they didn't exist before. There was a point where a brain didn't exist. There was a point where multicellular organisms didn't exist, meaning animals didn't exist. And then if you go forward, there was a point where multicellular organisms existed. There was a point where there were no animals out on land, and then there was a point where animals branched out to land because life started in the waters. And then all these different innovations, our ancestors, we belong to the great ape community, and then even that within that community we branched out to gorillas, to chimpanzees, to Homo sapiens, Homo erectus, all these different things. So you understand that a novelty needs to happen for the next innovation to happen. For internet banking to exist, internet had to exist. So banking existed before there was banking as well. It's an innovation. Banking existed before internet, and then when internet came to be in the 60s, it meant internet banking was an adjacent possible. So again, internet banking, it's a mixture of what? It's a mixture of banking and internet, right? So like I said, innovation, it's a mixture of two or more things to create something that doesn't exist as yet. So everything new, everything novel that could ever be created will only be created with things that exist at present. So even today, we're in the fourth industrial revolution. We've got 3D printing, the advances in nanotechnology, the advances in autonomous vehicles, the advances in flying cars. So all these different innovations, they give an opportunity for more innovations to exist or to be created. So right now, there's things that don't exist that are just hovering in the air, and then we need to connect what already exists to make them, right? And then sometimes you can think of creating something, but then there are no tools. I'm sure even before the creation of a motor engine, you could even say 1 million years ago, the animals then, or the genus Homo members thought of, hey, I wish I could fly like a bird, right? But then there wasn't, for a flying piece of machine to exist, it wasn't yet an adjacent possible. So only when a motor engine was created was flying an adjacent possible. Even a motor engine, it had to go different processes, meaning we had to discover how to mine minerals and how to turn them into, like to turn iron into steel, to all these things. We had to innovate them. And then fire was the control of fire was, because yes, of course, human beings didn't invent fire. It's a thing of nature. It's a consequence of nature. Sorry for choosing my use of the word consequence, but it's a phenomenon of nature that this thing, fire, can exist. And then even for fire to exist, also it exists in the realm of other properties in the air, oxygen, and all these other things. So everything that exists because of other things that in existence, or other things that came before that thing. So like the other example I mentioned was, I don't know if I mentioned, I went down to 2 billion years ago, but I didn't expand on that. What I meant was 2 billion years ago, there wasn't enough, what do you call it? Is it what oxygen? I forgot what oxygen in the air for human beings to exist in the form that, the amount of oxygen that we breathe 2 billion years ago, it wasn't there. And then things had to happen. Maybe plants had to expand in the environment for photosynthesis to take place and add more oxygen in the environment, so that the novelty that is human beings that finally became would exist. So when oxygen levels were rising, human beings were becoming a possibility, an adjacent possible, right? So what I'm explaining here is just that innovation exists in that context. Things need to be in existence for you to create something that doesn't yet exist. I gave an example of probably 1 million years ago, people imagined making a flying machine, but a flying machine wasn't an adjacent possible up until a motor engine was made, and the motor engine, still had to be made, and all this. So innovations are also discovered through processes of tinkering. You have to be experimental. Twitter was discovered because the founders were on the run, where they were tinkering. So if you know the stories that before the concept of Twitter was created as a communication tool in one company that Jack Dorsey, the co-founder of Twitter, was doing. They created it as a communication tool, and then they decided to say, okay, maybe this business is not working, but let's explore this concept that we created, and let's call it Twitter. And that's how the concept of Twitter became. So to be an innovator, you need to be on the run, as I put it. You need to be tinkering with things so that you can make a discovery. Antibiotics, right? They were discovered by accident by Dr. Alexander Fleming. So the story is that he went away for a bit of a holiday. When he came back, he had to come to find that on his table there was a mole that had grown. And then upon investigation, he found that this thing has antibacterial properties, meaning it can kill and stop bacteria from growing. So before then, there wasn't antibiotics, right? But there were, what is it? I forgot the term. So is it not antibiotics? So antibiotics, it's what kills bacteria and stops it from growing. Before then, there was something that I forgot the biological term for it. It kills bacteria, but it doesn't stop it from growing. So antibiotics were discovered by Dr. Alexander Fleming as an accident. But the reason he discovered it is because he was on the run, he was on the move, he was tinkering with things. So whatever he left on his table was because of work. So upon investigation, so if you're tinkering, you know what you do with what you discover. You could discover, oh, flip, this is something valuable. But then if you're not tinkering, you wouldn't know what to do with it, right? Even with the story of Twitter, it's the same. Those guys developed that concept of Twitter, that communication tool that became Twitter, because they were on the run. They were trying to create something, and they knew what to do with it because there were people on the run. Like on the run, I mean, you are busy doing things, and then that's how you discover things. So you can discover new novelties spontaneously. So that's how antibiotics were okay. So yeah, I just remember the term is antibacteria. So there were chemicals that had bacterial properties in them. They could only kill bacteria, but an antibiotic could kill and stop bacteria from growing. So that's the difference. So that was the novelty. That was an antibacteria, antibiotic, right? So I'm just explaining that innovations are discovered spontaneously. Sometimes they could be deliberately. Like, for example, the corona vaccine. It was discovered, or rather, it was a deliberate attempt. But the reason it was possible is because there were so many discoveries that were made before in science. So those tools also could be used to make the innovation that is the COVID-19 vaccine, right? So as new innovations are made, more and more innovations could be made. So again, to round it back, think of the first stone tool discovered 3 million years ago to now. How many, maybe billions, if not millions or even hundreds of millions of different innovations. There's books, there's cameras, the cars, all these different things. And then they are able to match. With internet, you can connect your watch with your phone, with the lights at home. So they match, right? Or rather, they can converge and they can co-opt into the other. So like I said at the start of this, rather maybe the subtitle of the talk today is that it is the easiest and cheapest time in history to be an innovator, right? Because of innovations. I'll give you another example. So years ago, we used to make clothing, but before we really started making the clothes, we were just getting quotations for different things. Shoes, then we'd get quotations for shoes, which is like 2008 there. And then the minimum order quantities were around 1,000, right? So last year we did a quotation for shoes and other things. The minimum order quantity was like, the minimum it got to was 50 units, right? So imagine if to make, when I whip up my calculator here. So 10 years ago, to make shoes, let's just say, I'm giving examples here. Let's say to make shoes, the minimum order quantity was 1,000 units, and it cost, let's say, $50, right? So to make 50,000 pairs, it will be what? 50 rands by 1,000. My math's not so good, so hence I need to use a calculator. So it will be 50,000, right? Now, today, to make shoes, the minimum order quantity, it's what? It's 50. As I give example that's what the quotation that we got. But then the more you make, the cheaper it gets. But let's say, for example, to make 50 units, it doesn't cost $50. It costs $100. So if I need to start a shoe brand, I'll need it will be 50 units by 100, which is 5,000. As compared to 1,000, maybe 10 years ago, 12 years ago. So that's why it's cheaper today to make all these innovations. Maybe today to make 1,000 units, it's no longer $50, but it's below 50. Maybe it's $30. But how is that possible, right? It's because of innovation. Innovation makes things cheaper. And I will connect it to this, right? I'll connect it to a transistor. So a computer uses a central processing unit. If you think of it as the brain of the computer, and it's got all these different transistors inside, right? And okay, so one of the first computers it was the size of, I think, I could be getting it wrong, but the example I remember, I think it was 1/4 of a football stadium, or I think something like that. I could be wrong, but it was huge. So even the innovation with transistors, like for example, an iPhone 6 today has got 2 billion transistors inside. So years ago, transistors were huge, and then with innovation, they got smaller and smaller and smaller. And then why they got smaller is because also the technology of making them was also advancing. There were different processes that were made, invented rather. There was, I think, one of the first transistors was made with a thing called the geranium, and then it evolved to using silicon. As all these innovations were actually, I detailed this quite clearly in the books. So as these different innovations was happening with transistors, they were getting smaller and smaller, smaller and smaller. In 2005, I remember I was doing my first year. We used floppy disks, and then USBs came through. Floppy disk was about, the largest size was about 150 megabytes. I could maybe 2 megabytes or something like that. But it was this huge sort of disk. And then innovations came, USB came, and in 2006, I remember I had a USB that was like, I don't know, 500 megabytes or 1 gig. But clearly in 2008, I had a USB that was 2 gig. Imagine from maybe 2 megabytes in 2005, 6, 7, 8. So 2008, in those few years, you could go from 2 megabytes to 1 gig or to 2 gig. And then all that, why is that? Because transistors were getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. 2009, I remember I had a digital camera that I bought for 1.5. I had a BlackBerry 8520, which I think was 3.5. I had a GPS, I think it was 1.5. I had a laptop, which was around 4,000. So all those things, they were over 10,000, right? Today in 2021, just a simple phone that you buy for 1.5, right, has got all those things. It's got GPS. You can access your emails in it. It's got a camera, even a better camera than my Nikon digital camera that I had in 2008-9 there. So all this is possible because of transistors kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. It's called Moore's law, right? So technology makes things smaller and smaller and agile. So hence, so you can, that same concept, move it to manufacturing. Meaning with manufacturing, if they had big machines in 2008 that only would allow a run of 1,000 units of shoes, right? Today, it means because of the transistors kept getting smaller and smaller, but by getting smaller and smaller, they would get big and bigger in effectiveness, in space, in processing power. So you could make a smaller machine that will do maybe a run of 50 units, meaning that's access to anyone to come and manufacture. So meaning now the cost of entrepreneurship has become cheaper because of innovation, right? So hence I say it is the cheapest and perhaps the easiest time in history to be an innovator, because things are cheaper. With just through email, you can email a company in China and inquire. Now there is 3D printing. Most universities have 3D printing machines. You can even go there and help them, ask them to help you make a a 3D print or prototype of whatever thing you want to manufacture. So manufacturing, well, it still works like this, and hence it was expensive. Is that they use a system of like they use mold injectors. Say, for example, to make a phone like this, so it's got like one cover on the other side, one cover on the side. So to print, to make a lot of them, they would need like they'll need to first create the mold. It's a bit pricey. So what with the mold is think of a basin that makes one half and another basin that makes the other half. If the other half it's of a different shape to the maybe think of a toy or even a phone, the front is different to the back. So you would need two basins, and then after that you make them with those two molds, and then you close them up. They make a perfect toy. But now 3D printing allows you to just print a prototype of each thing at a go, maybe for an hour or so, depending on how big or rather depending on how big and how big is the 3D printer, or how big is your the thing that you want a prototype of. So this is innovation. It makes things simpler. It makes things cheaper. Years ago, to register a company, if maybe example you're in the rurals, you need to remember. I paid, I think it was it 500 to register my first company in 2006. It was called Large Communications, and I think I was still a student. Anyway, I needed to pay someone who would know how to go register these things with the DTI. But today you can just do it online. Within a few minutes, you've got a company that's in process to be registered. I just saw the other day a friend of mine saying it registered a company, I think within days, within hours. So it's because of innovation. Internet has allowed things to happen. Now we're conversing through a camera and the internet. Back then, before there was all this technology that we have, meaning people had to travel to places to speak to people there, or maybe they needed to make a cassette, and then you go and produce a couple of units, and then you need to ship it out or ship a master to one country that will also reproduce those masters. So all I'm saying, the culmination is that innovation makes things simpler as it goes by. So if things were harder yesterday, today they are easier, then tomorrow they'll be even way easier. So that's the thing with innovation. All right. I just want to look something up quickly in here. So in my explanation of innovation, I use, you could say evolutionary sort of principles, because I think everything is connected. Like I'm saying, I've just shown you, even today we still, money also is an innovation that has evolved from gold. Gold you could get marked, and then people started producing gold certificates, right? And then gold certificates, that's where paper money kind of like started. You'll keep your gold with the bank, with just say a warehouse, and then that warehouse ultimately became a bank. That's the concept, right? So also money has an evolutionary trail. It was getting agile, so instead of using paper, and then the concept of fiat money was introduced, which is fiat money is basically state-controlled money. Meaning in South Africa we use rands, and the USA they use dollars, and Zimbabwe they use Zim dollars. So it's kind of like a bank decreed money, bank declared money that we use. So also that money serves as a tool for us to transact. And then with the coming up of internet, it means we were able to transact online. So you can buy stuff without traveling. So that's how money also evolves, and so money, again, like I'm saying, it's a concept, it's an innovation. before, maybe kind of like we were able to do internet transactions, we used to use checkbooks, or we would use like hard cash and then checkbooks. And then now EFTs came, which is kind of like digital money, but now digital money went online, went on the internet. So it evolves. So technology makes things simpler and simpler and simpler. We're going to go on a break in few minutes. So I'm just showing you that, all these innovations are connected. Money connects everything because we transact with money. Also, internet also connects many things, because many things now, well, it connects money as well. We can trade, you can sell things online, you can buy things online because of what internet, and we use what money, fiat money. And now there is competition, which is cryptocurrency also, which is another form of innovation, which is decentralized kind of money without, because also money. So with the coming up of, actually, maybe let's go for a break. I'll come to those concepts later, and then we'll get to the factors that will help you see, or rather analyze your business, whether it could be or your product, sort of the success factors, the factors that usually lead to a success of a product. And then all right, it's a break time now.
Boundaries. Let's talk about boundaries. Boundaries is this now buzzword lately where, people would say, yeah, I just want to put boundaries and cut people out. And boundaries has absolutely nothing to do with cutting anyone out. Boundaries, unlike popular belief, is about taking responsibility for how you react, what you accept, and what you don't accept in your life. And when you do that, when you have made it clear that this and this and this is acceptable and this is not acceptable, you need to live in such a way that that is withheld. Boundaries are not, I'm going to cut anyone who hurt me or anyone who's negative in my space. That's not boundaries. That's something else. Boundaries are about you. They're about what you value, your responsibility, and how you respond to things.
For over a century, scientists warned that the Earth's climate was changing as a result of human action. South Africa's plans and initiatives to create a green economy have positioned the country to take the lead on the continent through the country's membership to the Partnership for Action on Green Economy, PAGE.
South Africa joined this program in 2015 as part of the outcomes of the Rio+20.
PAGE is supported by the generous contributions of its donor partners, and it brings together 5 United Nations agencies.
South Africa is one of the first recipients of PAGE Green Recovery Funds.
This is reflected in the National Development Plan Vision 2030, which puts green economy
and low carbon economy in South Africa.
PAGE has certainly lived up to its intention of forging partnerships and network in South Africa.
To ensure that going forward, we have this green economic recovery and stimulus package that meets the needs of our developing society.
Hi, my name is Lucky Deru. I'm an entrepreneur, strategist, and investor, the founder of ICRD Group, the company behind the 4IR Aquatech Accelerator Program. In 2018, when South Africa celebrated Nelson Mandela's centenary, as a company we sat down to say, how can we celebrate this amazing milestone in our country's history? And we decided to develop and conceptualize the 4IR Aquatech Accelerator, a sector-specific program that seeks to fast-track sustainable solutions to Africa's pressing water, food, and energy nexus challenges. Annually, we invite solutions across the four corners of our country to participate in this awesome program that seeks to identify, support, fund, and upscale a new generation of data-driven solutions to water, food, and energy nexus challenges. Join us in building sustainable strategies for Africa's rural and urban communities. Thank you.
And we back, right? So this is the second part. I just want to wrap up with money and the thing of transistors. So you can see that transistors really enabled a lot of things, right? A lot of innovations to happen, right? It enabled a lot of employment to happen. You know, since the start of the Industrial Revolution, most jobs needed masculine strength, right? And then with more innovations being created, it means everyone can partake in employment. So meaning more jobs that don't require sort of masculine strength, they just require maybe your smartness and maybe working at a call center. So innovation makes life better, right? There was a point where I think it's in the 1400s somewhere there, the average lifespan of a person was around 30, and then why did it go to where it is now, meaning a person can live, I think the average living age in the world, I think 72, in South Africa it's about 60 something. It's because of innovation, medical innovation. So one innovation in say electronics can co-opt into, or can be matched into what, into biology. Think of a cardiac pacemaker for the heart. That's that technology. It's kind of it's still innovation. It borrows from electronics, and then it brings it into biology. Now 3D bones are being made. So 3D printing also is enabling lives. Microscopes, that DNA sequencing, those things are enabling biology, and for maybe you could say cancer cells to be traced, to be studied, and all this medication. So, and like the whole point is that innovation is intertwined. So hence I was saying with money, transistors enables us now to, manufacturers require, or rather there are machines that require smaller quantities to do a run maybe of shoes, of cars. So things are becoming easier and cheaper. Again, with money also. So innovation follows agility, right? Think of if maybe the first chair was made out of stone, which is heavy to carry, and then someone discovers that we can make a chair out of wood, but then you need that wood. Well, wood, it's dried. That tree needs to be dead and needs to be dried, and then you can carve it out, and then you can carry that chair, which is less heavy than maybe a stone chair. Maybe again, still for aesthetics, people still use. There are some chairs that are made of stones. So, but I'm saying innovation follows an agility path. Money follows an agility path from exchange of goods for goods to commodity money through beads and seashells, to gold, to there being paper money, meaning you've got a gold certificate that it proves that I've got what is it? This amount of gold with a bank, and then now banks started issuing kind of like paper money. Paper money was like it's kind of like a certification that this is the amount of money that or gold that I've got with the bank. That paper money also evolved. There was checks, there was digital money in terms of EFT, and then came the internet. So you can see money also is following a path of agility. But now the reason I'm mentioning money is that it connects all these other different innovations, right? So it's kind of like the internet. A lot of things run on the internet. Even money runs on the internet. You can make transactions through the internet, banking transactions through the internet. Now, still money is evolving to cryptocurrency, which is, well, that's another concept again there, which is outside fiat money, which is state controlled. Because now you'd realize that with state controlled money is that there is, inflation in there. Inflation is calculated using CPI, Consumer Price Index, and then that it's like how they calculate it is like a basket of different consumer goods, and then there's a lot of criticism. I also criticize how sort of this CPI is calculated, but that's maybe another topic. But you see these things with cryptocurrency, you don't know which one will win. So there's to be competition of currencies. That's how I see it. But let me not get in the realm of the crypto debate. But again, it's a form of innovation. It keeps going forward, right? And then cryptocurrency also, it's based on the blockchain sort of technology, or the concept of blockchain. So all these innovations keep going in different transactions. So like I said, innovation is about tinkering. Whoever created Bitcoin, is it Satoshi? Yeah, so he was tinkering with the concepts of money. Even today, a lot of people are tinkering with different concepts of money, and then it goes in different directions. That's how innovation works. So you have to tinker, right? And you mustn't be afraid to put out whatever thing that you're innovating. So that's the culmination of how innovations work. So in the book I sort of conceived these factors that I call factors that enable the success of a product using the adjacent possible theory. That theory I said, I don't know if I said that, but it's got its basis in theoretical biology. So I'm using it to denote man-made innovations. So here are the factors that enable the success of a product using the adjacent possible. The first one is behavioral utility, right? So, okay. So when we innovate all these different things, it's because of the mind that we have, right? So the mind is the gift that keeps giving to innovations, meaning all these innovations are possible because of nature. Nature gave us this brain that we have, right? And then in biology, when they describe behavior, they call it anything that an organism does. If humans laugh, that's human behavior. We run, we talk. Even bacteria's got its own set of behaviors. Plants have got their own set of behaviors. Everything that we do as human beings, it's our behavior. The innovation that we are able to make is our behavior. So I say that for an innovation to work, it has to mirror human behavior, right? Think of a chair. A chair is out there. It's got utility for me, meaning it mirrors my inclination to want to sit and rest, and even a table. Like now, there's a table here. I put this bottle of water on top of it. It renders utility to me. So it mirrors my human inclinations. So all these millions of innovations that have been made by human beings and that we are using is because they are of utility to us. So they mirror a certain inclination in us to want to use them. So when I say behavioral utility, I mean inclination. An inclination to want to drink water out of a bottle, an inclination to smoke, an inclination to drink alcohol, an inclination to drive a car. All these things, you don't think of it as in a moral term. Some people do drugs. Drugs are bad. So as human beings, biologically, we are inclined to do all these other things that are maybe harmful to us, because it's an inclination. We have to accept us for who we are, and then if we understand who we are, we can create products that are what for us. So all these innovations in the world that you see we're still using, they are successful because they mirror our biology, and then by that I mean they've got a utility for us. Hence I say behavioral utility. So when you're making a product, it must mirror people's biological inclinations, right? Meaning you must give them some sense of some utility, right? A drug user sees utility in drugs, right? Although we don't think of it in a moral sense, but that's what it is, okay? So we see utility in a car. When I want to drive somewhere to see family, I see utility in that car. So that car was innovated, and it's staying because of what it's of utility to us, to human beings. So I'd like the team to queue up that human grid pyramid. Don't put it up yet, but I'll come to it. Just maybe put it in handy. Okay, so the first factor is that behavioral utility. Whatever you are making, just find out or think of what utility it meets, right? Clothing, a logo, a Nike logo, it's got an aesthetic inclination to human beings. So meaning we are able to like art, design, all this, and those are our behavioral inclinations. So a product has to mirror behavioral inclinations in humans. So the first factor is behavioral utility. Okay. The second factor is that innovation, that innovation has to have adjacent possible staking, meaning we need to stack for agility. Think of YouTube, right? I think I'll jump onto the YouTube example. So YouTube mixes what? Internet and video, and it made a thing called video streaming, right? So, like I said, no innovation, new innovation we made with what doesn't exist. So video streaming, obviously YouTube is not the first company to do video streaming, but it's the most successful. I'll kind of like give a positive why. So when video streaming came up, I think in the early 90s, a lot of people tried it. So it's gunning for agility. It's mixing video. Video existed before. Millions of people across the world were watching video. You could even say billions. I didn't find any measure of that, but I'm sure millions is a safe measure. And then internet. Internet was created in the 60s, but now it became available to the population at mass in 1992 when Sir Edward Banners created the first web browser. So meaning you could now just go on a piece of software and then you'll be able to access a website. That's what a web browser does. So meaning now, because mainly internet then was used more like in the military by academics, but now with the creation of a web browser, it gave the masses to go and use internet. So video streaming is a combination of what things that already existed, video and internet. When you combine them, they create agility. Digital money, it's adding agility to the concept of money from paper money, and then now you can use your card to swipe. Internet banking also, it's a forward of, or rather, adding agility to money. Now you can run transactions on a web browser, right? You see how these things are all connected, right? So your innovation, to maybe measure success of it, it's in that real video. Okay, so here's why I think YouTube, because there were other video streaming services before YouTube. So they were in competition as well, and maybe others created around the same time as YouTube, which is what, in 2005. I think YouTube became successful. Why? Because, well, firstly, all right, I think I'm gonna jump on to the next factor without realizing it. So anyway, so the factor is that YouTube was taken for agility by mixing internet and video. Let's just say video streaming and not necessarily YouTube. So that innovation, that is video streaming, you are creating agility. People want agility. People already using the internet. People already watching video in terms of movies, all these different sort of things. And now when you create video streaming, meaning you are making video. I can take a video and I can put it up on YouTube. My cousin who's elsewhere in the world can see it. That's agility there. So factor number 3, location-specific adjacent possible advantages. So here's why I think YouTube became successful. So it's in the USA. So in the USA in 2005, or in the world, over 1 billion people already using the internet, or billions of people around the world already watching video. So you're taking these two things that already have millions of users, even billions of users, and then you're making them into one thing, and then YouTube did that. Now, there were other streaming platforms, like I said, there was Vimeo, but Vimeo was you needed to pay, but YouTube used free content. You can just shoot a video and put it up on YouTube. Anyone else, anywhere in the world could use it, and then, run ads. That's how they made money. So any company, so in the USA, they had a population of over 300 million people, and I think over 60% of people, or 80, just that, but it was over 50, way over 50. They were already using in internet in the USA. So my calculation is that in 2005, the amount of internet users in the USA, over 300 million people, that's the population, and then all those people using, there were more than any population in Europe, and even more than a population in China that was using the internet. So if you were maybe a startup that had a video streaming platform that's like competing with YouTube, like YouTube was likely to succeed because it's got more users, meaning it's got more users. The traction, it's faster, it's superior, it can make more money, and if with making more money, it means it can, expand into other places in the world. So, and then again, that's why I would say YouTube was successful. So with measuring your own innovation, also look at that. And I'm not saying you should create things for the meaning of money, meaning you want to create something that will be equivalent to YouTube in rent value. So I'm just saying whatever you're creating, even if you're doing out of love, do what you do. But I think this sort of understanding just helps you see innovations in a different way. So factor number 4 is what I call sparsometrical interest. Then again, I call it, can say it's a convenience metrical interest of a product. why I say spaza, you know, in South African context, a spaza is a convenience store in our townships. And why I call it spaza is because I wrote a book called Township Biz Adjacent, which is before I really delved into fourth industrial revolution writings. So I was using it in the realm of spaza shop. So a spaza shop is a convenience store. So different products, but different spaza metrical interests or advantages. Think of, well, a book like this, you buy it, you read it once, maybe you shelve it, you again in a couple of years, or maybe you read it, don't like, you don't never read it again. Now think of a roll-on, right? A roll-on, people buy it, they use it every day. So meaning every month they'll be buying. So all these products have got sort of different metrical properties. So and then how the metrical property. So if it's a book, maybe I need to add another book. You can think of what you do in the context of your startup. Bread is being bought every day, but that's a heavily competitive sort of market. So when you're innovating, you need to know the metrical properties of your product. How often do people buy it? Do they buy it once? If they buy it once, maybe you need to release a version 2 or maybe expand on the concept in another product. So just that's the understanding. I'm gonna keep it going a bit faster now. Let's go to the fifth factor, which is a business model. So YouTube's business model was that maybe the reason why it became successful is because it was free, right? And then Vimeo was not free, and then it could. So you're competing as well on a business model sort of perspective. So you can tweak your business model to see where it goes. Again, I'm not saying create businesses that you think would become, would be worth billions, even if it's something you love. But it's good just understanding this sort of concepts. And the last factor, it's luck, right? The only way to be lucky, you have to do things. Remember, I said innovations are discovered deliberately or spontaneous. So again, it's like you never know whether you'll succeed or not. So to do things, that's how you get lucky. Maybe you're doing something now that maybe doesn't work. But because you're doing something, you'll be like Dr. Alexander Fleming and you'll discover a novel thing like antibiotics, or like Twitter. How it became is that it was a communication tool within one company, then they rolled that innovation tool into another company. So be on the run and tinker with things. So, okay, I want to go to. So I developed a model I call human grid pyramid. So can you put up a human pyramid, please? This is a round of what I've been, and you can then also put your questions there on Zoom in the write your question if you have any questions. So put up the human grid pyramid. Okay. So this pyramid, it went through different variations. So it's not a scientific tool, but it's an illustration of how innovations and how the world is ran, right? How the world evolves through all these different innovations. I can't see up here. I don't know if the human grid pyramid is up yet. All right. Like I'm saying, it's not I'm not trying to be scientific, but it's an illustration, meaning it's a framework to make us. Okay, I'm told it's up. Super. To make us see the world, like to understand the world a bit better, right? So that's why I created this. So the whole concept is to see how the world is ran, right? And by who, and who sort of dominates in the world, okay? So at the top there, I'm saying, so at the top there, it's novel innovation, but I'll start from the bottom, but let me just explain why novel innovation, why novelty is up. So there was a point when there wasn't human beings, right? So human beings became a novelty. So the world has moved forward in collaboration with what exists and novelty that's created with what already exists. So for the world to move forward, we need novelty. For there to be human beings, the human beings, when they were first formed, it was a novelty. So let's start at the bottom. So at the bottom, it's nature. It includes people, the plants, and all these other animals, the whole ecology, the whole sort of earth, and maybe outside the universe, because now we start tinkering. We are tinkering with going to other planets, right? So that's nature at the bottom there, and including people, right? And the second layer up, it's human behavioral inclinations. As human beings, we've got inclinations. We want to laugh, we want to sit, we want to be on an aeroplane to go, like we want to go to the next place quicker. So we've got all those different inclinations, as I explained. And we've got what I call, this is the third layer, what I call functional cognition, right? Functional cognition is sort of how we understand the world. Think of money again, right? Maybe a kid somewhere there wants sweets, right? Because we evolved to have an inclination for sweet things. Our ancestors used to eat fruits, and then fruits were safer because they are not poisonous. Like sweet things are not poisonous. A bitter thing we discovered as it's poisonous. So we evolved to like sugar, and then along the line we learn how to process sugar, rather innovate process sugar. So we are addicted to sugar. A kid wants sweets, but now they discover that you need money because they could want sweets outside of really understanding what is money. So now they want money. They don't understand the account, but know that with money they can go buy sweets. That's functional cognition. We just understand things for what we can get out of them, right? You see a chair, you don't ask yourself how is plastic made, but you understand that I can sit on a chair rest. That's functional cognition. That's as consumers, we just understand things from what we can get out of them. Users, they don't really go and say, "Yeah, I want to find out what are the chemical properties in this drug." You know, they just want them, right? I'm just using this to explain. That's our functional cognition. Now, above that, it's culture. Culture is everything that we do, right? Culture is everything that we do. So let me skip enterprising innovation and go again to novel innovation. That's right. Everything, any man-made innovation, it's introduced as a novelty, meaning what becomes any novel thing is something that didn't exist before, right? So the world is moved forward by introduction of things that didn't exist, right? We are maybe able to live longer because of antibiotics, although some might sort of argue that, but it's a certain role that antibiotics do play in the world. That the way a novelty like I gave with Dr. Alexander Fleming when he discovered them, right? So everything is introduced on a novelty, as a novelty in the world, right? And then there are these people I call enterprising innovation or innovators. These are bankers, these are people who manufacture. So these people are people who run everything that's in existence in the world. Enterprising innovation. Like I said, religion is an innovation. Money is an innovation. Marriage is an innovation because it plays a certain role. Even if we might not agree with the role, but we yearn for it. Even if we might not understand why we yearn for those sort of things, right? So they become innovation. So enterprising innovation is people who run those institutions, they manufacture. So if you do something novel today, probably in 20 years, when it's out of a patent, there'll be people doing on this enterprising, I call them enterprising sort of innovators. They run the world by facilitating things that were that were at some point a novelty, but maybe now they're no longer a novelty. So that's enterprise innovation. So when you introduce something new, ultimately it runs through enterprising innovation, and all successful innovations become culture. Culture is everything that we do. So this human grid pyramid tries to sort of, illustrate how the world is led. But at the top, it's novel innovation. Everything gets introduced at the top, and then if it's successful, it becomes culture. And I put enterprising innovation below novel innovation, in that you could create something novel, but you need someone to go and sell it, right? So that's how sort of these things run. That's how this world runs. So you can go check it out, the human grid pyramid. Just Google it, you'll see it. And I think I've got an article where I explain it, but also it's available in the book. So those questions could come up. So in a nutshell, I was just explaining that everything is intertwined, and mine is that innovation that we are able to exchange all these things with. So everything that's introduced in the world, there's a novelty. At some point, it's no longer a novelty, and then other people run it. So, you could say a convenience store runs innovations that have been created. If you create something novel, you'll need enterprising innovators to maybe sell it for you. But now technology also has made it easier for you to sell yourself. But there are other competing, you can say, what is it? Like Take a Lot. They sell stuff for you. They make convenience for you. So it's always competing innovation. So maybe you can concentrate on making innovations. You let someone else sell it to you. Or again, innovation allows you to sell it directly. Hence, it's the easiest and cheapest time in history to be an innovator. There's Shopify. You don't now need to pay thousands of rands for you to have an online store. You can just go and plug and play to create the logo now. Like, here's my philosophy on logos. If I believe a logo should be nice, but if maybe you're doing like a consulting business, your logo, you don't have to put a lot of energy into doing a logo, but maybe making clothes, that's what you need to do, because, well, clothes, we've got an attachment to symbols, right? So again, if you do maybe a consulting business or a business where, the logo is not what will sell you, you can just go on Canva. There's so many other apps that you can go and create a logo with. So technology has allowed things to be easier. Hence, I'm saying it's the cheapest time in history to be an entrepreneur. You can basically start today, have a logo, have a website on the same day, right? Well, I guess some people you need to figure out those sort of things, but it won't take you a week. So maybe back then in the days, you would need to work with a graphic designer, will take a week. Work with a web designer, will take maybe a month or a week. But now, within a day, you can access all those things. Even open a company. Hence, I keep coming back to that. It is the cheapest and easiest time in history to be an entrepreneur and an innovator. So I think that's where I'll wrap the talk. If there are any questions, and if I could get them. So I said at the beginning that I'm attempting to write a book about money, and again, I'm not, I said, I'm not writing it, not a book on how to make money. It's kind of like an anthropological or evolutionary path on money, because money, it's an innovation that sort of encompasses trade, encompasses all this other innovation. It connects all this other innovation. So I think it's just an interesting concept to follow innovations through the line of money. When the more we expand our innovations, the more barter trading becomes a nightmare, and then hence we need to innovate, advance money further, and then make that goes to commodity money, paper money, digital money. Now there are concepts of cryptocurrency. So again, another path that I see innovation going is that one day soon, because like I said, think of fiat money as money that government controls. Government can just mess the value of money, or things beyond your control can mess up the value of your savings. So maybe you can buy shares to put your money. Maybe those are not safe because their value could be wiped in a day, or if something happens, or if the CEO messes it up, or competition. So there are a lot of competing areas or platforms where you can put your money. I foresee a future where I think maybe it's even happening, where where you pay me, you can pay me with shares in a certain company, maybe F&B shares or whatever. So that's the kind of like the future of money. But all these innovations are happening because I'm not being political. I'm saying people are tinkering. So we all need to tinker, and so that we can figure out if we can't do this innovation. The creator of Bitcoin didn't actually, because that at one point that was a concept. If he didn't put that concept into play, didn't put it out there, so we have, be here today. So we kind of like thinking, and even government is thinking, ooh, okay, we're seeing competition from the outside world, and then they know that from decentralized currencies, and then they know that people really distrust government with handling the value of their money. Again, money, it's a difficult tool that whose value you can sort of handle. It has to be, it's volatile, it keeps going up and down, different factors affect it. So again, it's an interesting innovation actually. So those questions, if I could get them, please.
Okay.
Yeah. If you can read it out, I can also just repeat it here through the mic.
So we've got part two. What is your question? If you can come in.
Around culture, because I think everything, we follow everything because it becomes a culture. Now it's a culture for everybody to be on social media. It's a culture for every culture to absorb and technology. Everything, we follow everything because it becomes a culture.
The relationship between culture and innovation.
Okay. So the question is, what is the relationship between culture and innovation? So culture is everything that we do, but everything that we do is innovated. Meaning, the concept of marriage, it's innovated, right? Out of maybe necessity, but it's an inclination that we have. So everything that we do as human beings, it's culture. It's eating sweets, it's culture. So culture is every successful innovation. So it's every we do, religion, all these sort of things, they are culture. So for your innovation to be successful, it has to be part of culture, meaning people must want to use it, and then they must have this biological inclination to want to use it. So culture is there. It's all successful innovations. It's everything that we do. Marriage, religion, those are, I call them innovations because they are human invented concepts or utilities. There's value in them, even if we might not agree with it. As long as other people are doing it, it means it's got value for them. So that's the relationship. Wearing watch is an innovation. Wearing watch now, it's culture. Social media, it's now culture. It's an innovation, it's now culture. And that innovation is enabled by a whole lot of factors that go through a couple of years. Invention of the transistor, programming, different programming languages, different things to connect the world in terms of all those things, they become part of our culture. Like culture is culture is innovations. Everything that humans do, and human work on innovations, like I said, religion, marriage, going out now, it's a culture. Alcohol, it's a culture. All this innovation that we're using, it's part of our culture. yeah, I'm waiting for the maybe the second question.
Second question is, what do you foresee as the impact of COVID in terms of driving and developing a new basically trajectory for communities?
Just repeat it again so I can.
The impact of COVID in driving new trajectories of new behaviors and new for communities.
What's the impact of COVID in terms of developing new trajectory on innovations for our communities? Did I get it right? Okay, so I can give a forecast, but if, no one can really tell you. Just if a forecast becomes wrong, you should blame yourself in that you took someone's forecast, because no one really can tell the world. Can use pet. So I don't know, man. Because I'm also in business. COVID has affected me. We own a publishing business. There was a point where bookstores were closed down. There was a point where in malls only convenience stores were open, meaning your food traders. And then that's when you realize. And then that's when you realize, okay, cool. We get a lot of traffic. So meaning in a mall, think of a mall context. If you go to ShopRite or you go to Checkers to buy food, probably gonna pass it by a bookstore, right? Or if you're going to a bookstore, you're gonna pass by a Checker. So I realize that now commerce really depends on people being connected. Like, you know what I mean? So it's hard really to predict what's the trajectory. Personally, naively, I'm wishing the world goes back to normal. I think partly it's back to normal and we can go about our business, because that's where I realized that some of these businesses, tried a couple of ideas that never really went anywhere last year when COVID was in hard lockdown. But I think for economics to thrive, it depends on human beings being able to be connected. So if maybe say, for example, many waves come and they distract us, the obvious is that the new normal will be buying stuff online, having meetings like this. So, it's hard to make a forecast, but I'm wishing that the world goes back to normal and then we get on with our business so that we can connect. But then again, if another pandemic, because you never know, maybe another pandemic will come. It could be one that really, I don't know, destroys. It could be maybe a nuclear disaster somewhere in the world. It could affect us differently to COVID. If another virus comes that's airborne, I guess we have to be in lockdown. And human beings, we are about movement, man. All organisms really about movement. We need movement to thrive. Economics is about movement, moving one good to from one place to another. That's so. One way I try to see the future, I look at innovations that connect all other innovations, which is man, and the other one, which is internet, right? They merge and co-opt other innovations. Maybe think of your industry, think of it in that context. How does internet affect my industry? Well, it's sort of kind of like connected. Cars, I guess, connect people in different regions. So, I mean, like I'm saying, commerce, it needs transit. We need to move from one place to another. Even if it's just sending an email, that's transit. But, for leisure, maybe you want to go to the Maldives, you want to go to Dubai. So it's hard to pinpoint it. I know I danced in circles, but I think I just gave a couple of, NB points of maybe what to look at. It's hard.
I see there's also another one here, is that Africa always seems to get its innovations from the shelf. What are the top 3 solutions or possibilities that you think could really be authentically African innovations?
What are the top? So the question is, we get our innovations from the shelf, meaning other people in the world created, and then what are the 3 top things that we think we need to do?
That would be authentically African.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to be controversial here. So my philosophy is this. So the whole context of this talk is that it's now easier to be an innovator and an entrepreneur. So you could say my philosophy is this, right? I'm more for the individual. I don't want to speak on what government should do, what kind of like other people should do. I'm more so of the individual. So what the framework I gave that is things are easier now. So what can we do as individuals? Because there's a quote. It's also a controversial quote. Okay, let me not go to it. But anyway, so I'm more for the individual. What if there's something that you want to do it. So entrepreneurs work on. There's always few entrepreneurs in society. Why there's always few people earning more than the others, because everything depends on the hierarchy. We can't all be the CEO, so it also seems that we can't all become the entrepreneurs. But what I'm sharing is that it's easier to be an entrepreneur today. So whatever idea that you do have, I think that's the only way Africans will create jobs. In that we have to create innovations. We have to innovate. Whatever idea that you have, tinker with it. If it fails, yes, that's good. But because you're on the run, you'll discover what other thing you could do. Like for example, my first book. Why I got into writing books? That I'd moved home. I saw myself as a failure then, and then when I was at home, I was like, oh flip, what do I do now? So I've always been writing. So there was one article that I saw that okay, I can expand on this article into a book. So it became my first book. Forget the business plan. Is this short model. So I guess my answer is, maybe I'm not giving three things, is that when you tinker, when you do things, you'll discover better ideas, more ideas, and you can create products. For them, I think the most genuine way for really Africa to go somewhere is for entrepreneurs to just keep being entrepreneurs, to tinker, to create innovations, to be a bit bolder. Like I said, it's now cheaper to tinker with this innovation. So in terms of what government should do, man, hey, government, it's a whole another dynamic. But I'm rooting for the individual. I think do a mix. So as innovation is a mixture of one or more two things. So innovation, for you to be an innovator, you also need to do a multiple of things. Meaning, all my experiences, they can produce another innovation, which is a book or a blog post. Because I'm taking that experience, and then from there on I got in publishing because I was into books. So it's kind of like it's a movement, like from one place I'm going to another, from one place to another. So the message is it's easier for entrepreneurs, man, to do their thing now, or to become one. So sorry for not giving three things. Yeah.
Super. And I see another one here talks about gender.
Okay.
And innovation.
Yeah.
That a lot of these innovations, or the people that are in the forefront of innovations, seem to be male. What can be done to actually disrupt the space, or even put women basically on the agenda?
Yeah, like I said, my philosophy is for the individual, so it applies to women. I think, look, women now, a lot of women are entrepreneurs, are doing like amazing things in biotechnology, in all this sort of different spheres. So some people don't like the analysis I give of the world. Let's just start with the first industrial revolution. So you can only have few people at top management, right? And then most people there in a company, like at the start of the industrial revolution, it was what? It was masculine jobs. Even today, there's still masculine jobs. Those people who offload cases from SAP trucks, from Coca-Cola trucks, those are masculine jobs. So the start of industrial revolution was most of the jobs were sort of needed masculine stamina. But with innovation transistor, it makes things easier. So all these innovations, like for example now, a lot of women are employed in retail. Why? Because retail sells innovations, right? As it sells innovations, the iPhones, all these different innovations, it's a space where also women can come and now work. Now, like again, the whole gist of this talk is that it's now easier. Like ladies are doing. I don't want to say I want to employ ladies to go into entrepreneurship. They are doing it. Like it's possible. Like I think people should just tinker and do the same framework of tinkering. It applies to both men and women. So I implore them to tinker. So I don't want to speak at it from a macro sort of level. I want to speak to the individual. What I've been sharing here is that anyone can understand it, and it's cheaper now. Like we are all different in fashion, different gender, different, all these differences, right? We see the world differently because of our backgrounds. So just imagine 30 trillion cells in your body, from your grandparents, all this sort of thing. That's what makes us different. So we see the world in difference. Let's maybe tap into those differences and create the things that, like, create the world in a view that we want to create it. So even if it means a lady getting into the shoe business, they see as kind of like a futuristic view of how to create shoes, even for men or even for cars. It's easier. 3D printing, all these things. Like, it's the world. It's easier today to get into things.
No, this one is interesting. This one actually talks to innovation in the politics space. What are your thoughts on basically innovation, politics, elections?
I would need to, I can't answer all these questions. So innovation in politics. We went to vote a week ago, and it was on a Monday. I drove around 3 townships, and I saw like people were drinking. So I mean, why do you have to go to voting stations if can there be a way for us to vote at home? I mean, anything can be innovated. I don't know what I guess it will have to follow parameters that it's safe. I remember in the US states when it was standoff between Trump and Biden. Some people but voting at home, they will send you a voting thing at home. So maybe that's where politics is going. But I mean, for South African context, I think it's the last time that the next election, I think, ANC is going to drop. Again, I'm making a forecast. If it doesn't come through, and you don't blame me, meaning you took my forecast. So if it drops below, we are going to be in a coalition government. Maybe then when people are coaliting, I don't know if that's a word, they would agree to maybe using digital voting, because the voter turnout was low. So if people were voting at home, it would be easier. So I guess maybe that's my view of politics. But generally, politics for me, it's a gamble. Like, you just go to the voting stations. It's not like, hey, I'm qualified to run the country. We vote for them. But then again, we are evolving, man. So maybe they will incorporate all these different technologies that we are producing. Maybe crypto can be incorporated into voting, but I don't know. So I'm saying, I'm for the individual. Let's do our thing and try to change the world from that perspective. Sure. Oh, that's all. All right, super, guys. I've been talking for a long time, so thank you for listening, and thanks to the Business Clinic for this month, the Startup Business Festival. Thank you, guys. Thanks for inviting me. All right, super.